So, what is going on, guys? Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Legacy and Legacy United Insecticons, the original 3G1 Insecticons, because yes, we did actually get all of the other Insecticons at this point, which is a little crazy, but here we have the original three, the trio of Kickback, Shrapnel, and Bombshell. And they're interesting, I guess. I mean, it's a set of three. They actually were a little harder to get for the most part because everyone wanted them. They're a trio. They're one of those ones that, like, people apparently could not get Bombshell too easily. I had him pre-ordered as soon as they put that up. I was like, I need that because I had Shrapnel. I was ready to go. And as far as it goes, these guys are interesting, but it took 2 lines to get them out. We had Kickback here, came out in Legacy, and the other 2 came out in Legacy United, Wave 2, and the final wave. Yeah, so it took a little bit to actually complete the set, but they did it, and how is it? Meh, if I'm being honest. So let's just get into this, and we're going to talk about Kickback first, since he was the one that came out first, and honestly, he might be the best one, which is a little unfortunate. As far as it goes for Kickback, he does look quite nice. He does have his nice translucent yellow chest piece. People said, oh, it looks like this is supposed to open. That's a spring. It's not. That's just how the pin is. It's just how the pin looks in there. It's not meant to be a spring or anything. It just looks like there's grooves on it. Is there a chance that this thing's an old recycled Titans Return toy? Maybe, but I highly doubt it. Mine is pretty alright, I guess. He has his gun. He has his 2 swords. 2 swords. The other one's back here. And I mean, it looks pretty good, if I'm being honest. There's not really any issues. It looks exactly like Kickback. He's very, very nice looking. He has barely any kibble, other than the wings, which are meant to be there. This is just there for storage purposes, because it can connect together with this blade. Not exactly in the middle, though, which, in my opinion, a little unfortunate you can't put it exactly in the middle. But you can create this giant sword for him to wield. His hands tend to fold forward, so you actually could get it like a little like hand blade type of thing. Puts a gap in his arm, but I mean, I think I'd rather him holding it like this opposed to the upward, because it's a bit of an odd shape for a blade. So it's pretty neat. And that's just his translucent weapon gimmick that fell off by the end of Legacy. I find it funny. They tried that like the first wave, second wave kind of had it, and then by the third wave, it was just gone. It just didn't exist anymore. I just find that funny, if I'm being honest. His other accessory is his little gun, which looks like a little Tommy gun. It has a little drum on it, painted in purple. And the barrel's also painted purple, but you can't really see it too well for some reason on my camera right now. You can't really see it. It is there, though. They are different colors. Head sculpt looks great. Great placement of the Decepticon badge. And, I mean, overall looks pretty good. Most of the paint on the figure is on the legs down here. That's basically it, if I'm being honest. His articulation's pretty alright as well. Ball joint in the head, forward and back, outward, elbow. It is a double elbow, kind of, if you can get it there. There you go. So you can kind of get a double out of it if you're looking for it. Waist rotation, forward, back, outward, swivel, knee joints, and, of course, an ankle tilt, because he needs that. Everybody has that. And that's it for Kickback's robot mode. So now we're just going to talk about one of the other 2, probably Shrapnel. We're just going to keep it in release order, I guess. And here we have Shrapnel, and Shrapnel is, he's intriguing. I mean, he's probably my favorite looking robot out of the bunch. I actually really like Shrapnel's robot mode for some reason. There's just something about it. I kind of like how boxy and round at the same time it is. It's just kind of weird. Like, he has a really rounded head, his shoulders are rounded, but then he has these big square legs and forearms, and his chest is like half square, half rounded. It's really strange. He has these very cool pylons up here, his little mandibles, turning him around. Again, no kibble. There's his gun. I always just put that on his back. It slots in perfectly. And his back is all purple. Which, actually, the gun, I find, helps for some reason. He also had a bit of paint on there that dripped. But I find that, like, helps the look of the back. It gives it a cool design. That's not his only gun, though. because he has some forearm blasters, which can be removed and put in his hands, but I always just leave them underarmed, just for transformation purposes, because yes, he kind of has a parts-forming transformation with those, only slightly, though. And I mean, overall, he does look quite cool. This paint is very noticeable up here, though. It's a very shiny black comparatively to the rest of it. And mine actually is missing a screw in his left leg. See that? There's a port with no screw. See that? Oh, there's a screw. I don't know if those screws I get with my stands might work. I might have to try those. I never really thought about that. I might try that after this review and see if that can fix it. It's not really a big deal, though. The leg only comes off if I actually try to rip it off. So it's pegged on there pretty good. And I mean, it just looks like a pretty solid robot mode. I mean, I don't really hate him. His articulation's a little different, though. He has a swivel head just due to the nature of how his whole head setup looks. Forward and back, outward, elbow joint, swivel, forward and back, outward, rotation, knee, and of course ankle tilt, but not really as deep as kickback. But one thing I just noticed is this is actually ratcheted. Pretty cool. Next up out of the three is Bombshell, who is the most disappointing out of the bunch. Why is he the most disappointing out of the bunch? Well, he's a remold. Yes, for some reason, they cannot complete a set of characters without one of them being a remold of the other one. Menasor, guess what? Breakdown, he's a remold of why am I forgetting? I always forget his name. Wild Rider. He was a remold of Wild Rider. In this case, Shrapnel and Bombshell are the same-ish. If you look, you could tell. It's basically the chest is different, the shoulders are different, and the head's different on Bombshell. The legs are completely the same, just minus paint in this one's case. The arms are the exact same, except the shoulders, like I'd mentioned, and the chest is entirely different. The back is entirely different, and that's it. They're like the same thing. I just wanted to point that out, and it's kind of disappointing. Bombshell's also the worst one of the entire bunch, and it's not close. Once again, he does have little underarm, forearm guns, which I don't mind his. They actually look a little more like they can hide better, because Shrapnel has these big, bulky ones. His are like these little tiny, thin ones, so they could literally just pass off as bug legs. He has his typical little gun as well. There that is. Very tiny little thing. Also has his head gun. But his head, that's kind of the main point of contention with this figure. What were they thinking? Why didn't they just make his head go into his chest? Instead, he has this giant flap. His head is supposed to look like this, with the thing on top. Yeah, instead of doing that, they just said, you know what, guys, what if we did this? And it doesn't look good. So in my opinion, it actually looks better to just have his head like this at this point. Like, I genuinely hate his head. His head sculpt is genuinely the worst one in the bunch, easily. It's so bad. I don't know why they screwed it up so bad. I don't know what they were thinking with it. They just weren't thinking with it at that point. Like, they're just like, you know, good enough. They basically called it good enough with Bombshell and didn't even try. And that makes me upset, because again, they keep doing it with sets of characters. They just always do it. They just call it good enough on the last character. And it's annoying. It is getting annoying. This guy also has the least amount of paint out of the bunch. All of the color is on his chest. All of it. It's not even a joke. Literally, if you're looking, you can tell it's all on his chest. He is definitively the worst one. And it's not close. He is the worst one of the three. Now it's transformation time, and I'm not going to lie to you, this is kind of meh, starting with kickback. Just move them off to the side here. None of them have great transformations, if I'm being honest. They all have really kind of just their transformations. So starting with kickback, fold up his feet like so. Come to his wings and fold them around. Doesn't matter which way you fold it. I just did it the long way, though, for some reason. Fold his arms down like that and flip in his hands to give him his little bug claw feet there. And there we are. Turn him around and fold out his little panel, which goes over his face, and then come into the back of his legs and fold out his little grasshopper feet, like so. And that's it. That's Kickback's alt form, but you can add these here, which I think do help the alt form a good amount, if I'm being honest. He does really need this, if I'm being honest. So there's a port down there, which you just peg that into. And that gives him like a kind of thorax, I guess. I think that's what it's called, which helps him design-wise pretty immeasurably, honestly. Like, he does really need that to actually look any good. Anyway, that is Kickback's alt form and transformation. We'll talk about the alt form in a minute. Shrapnel's transformation is, again, the same. So, I don't know why I removed that. Keep the gun on there. Flip in the hands. Like so. Take these little gray parts, flip them over the head. Flip these things inward. Take his gun, remove it. If you have it on the back, you probably have it in his hand. I just have it on the back. I didn't really even show this. There that is. Look at that. Ta-da! That's his gun. Show it. There's a port on the back. After that, you're going to want to come to the legs. I got to remember how the legs will work, because it's been a minute. You got to open up the front panel. I forgot. It's weird. Just open up the front panel, flip the toes back, and then you gotta collapse them forward, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, forward. Typically when they do this step, you're like collapsing the leg in on itself. Not this time. Actually, no, you do. Stupid. You do it this way. It's been a minute. I know. There we go. You do it that way. You do rotate the waist around. I wasn't 100 on that. Should I have transformed these guys before I reviewed them? Probably. Do I ever do that? Not really. Unless it's like one I know has a difficult transformation, which these guys don't, as you can tell. And, yep, there's Shrapnel's alt form. Just peg that little doodad down there. There you go. Shrapnel's alt form. It's like a little thingy-ma-do. And now last up is Bombshell, who is the exact same as Shrapnel for the most part. Take his head, make sure it's like that. Come to the legs, flip out the front panel, rotate the waist, peg it together, fold out those, fold these out, and then that'll peg in. And then for the arms, take the hands, fold them in. Same thing as before, really. And then you gotta take his arms. I'm trying to peg them in stupidly. They go under this time, if I'm not mistaken. And then take his arms, fold them underneath like so. And they do kind of peg in. I do say kind of. They gotta peg in using that side tab on the inside. And there you end up with his alt form. There's also this little thingy here for no reason. Peg his gun up top here. Ta-da! That's the alt form. And all of the Insecticon alt forms are sci-fi bugs, as always, so they actually do end up looking like absolutely nothing. They have, like, a vague resemblance to bugs. Kickback has the best likeness to a bug, I guess. But his transformation kind of sucks, and the bug mode kind of sucks, because it's not really held together. There's not really a way to get to it. Just kind of, like, fold his legs back, and then fold out the little bug legs and split his arms. That's all you do. And it doesn't look like anything, really. And you can't move the antennas up or anything, so they're just kind of stuck that way. Shrapnel is more of a vehicle-looking thing than a bug. Like, this thing could pass off as some kind of Cybertronian vehicle, because there's, like, a cockpit up here. Like, it could pass off as a Cybertron vehicle. I don't get this whole thing. He has the worst alt form of the bunch. And then you got Bombshell. Better, but... yeah, I mean, he has the big yellow eyes, I guess. And, I mean, he's fine. There's not much to say about him, honestly. The alt forms are really just kind of there. And it's the same thing with the G1 Insecticons. They're kind of mid in their alt forms. They're just there. They're things that don't look like things, and that's it. So, let's just get to my final thoughts on these guys, which, honestly, was this set worth it? Not really, if I'm being honest. They're just so there. The best one for robot mode is kickback. The best alt form is probably also kickback. So, the first one they released, much like how they've been doing it, is amazing. And then the rest of it is just kind of there. I can't get that panel now. Awesome. We'll circle back. But as far as it would go, that's just a weird trend with Hasbro toys from Legacy. They'd go crazy with the first one and then absolutely butcher the rest of the line using the next ones. It's really strange. The other example is Dragstrip, who was apparently really good. I don't own Dragstrip because, I mean, I could have multiple times. I just never bothered to pick him up because I was like, well, I'm not going to complete Menasor. So, basically, Dragstrip was also apparently stupid good, but then obviously Wild Rider came out. Wild Rider was just like the dead-end mold from Combiner Wars. Again, somehow. And everyone, oh boy. And then Dead End came out and he was just kind of alright. I actually don't mind Dead End. I think he's actually pretty cool. But then they released Breakdown, and Breakdown was the same thing, and it's just, oh man. So again, Kickback's definitely the best. Shrapnel, he's cool. I like his robot mode, I think, the most. I'd say he still has the better robot mode of the bunch, but I like Shrapnel's design a little bit more. Because he's a bit more box standard Deceptorobo man. That's the only reason I kind of like him a little more, is because he's a bit more box standard. And again, like, I know there's supposed to be Insecticons and all, so there's that lag thing I mentioned with the missing screw. It usually happens on the way back. But it's just one of them things that makes no sense to me of why this guy's an Insecticon. Like I said, it looks like a vehicle. It does. This alt mode looks like a vehicle. I wouldn't, if you were a kid and had this, and you didn't know it was supposed to be a bug, you would probably think it's some kind of weird space vehicle or spaceship. You probably would, because they have this giant yellow thing on his chest, which looks like a cockpit. So, very easily could pass for a vehicle. And then there's Bombshell. This is what happens when you give up. You just take one of the other molds, slap some different colors on it, or in this case, remove colors from it, make one new part, and then get going. They basically fell asleep on this one. They fell asleep at the wheel and just said, let's just do Shrapnel again, make a different chest piece and head, and some different shoulders. 4 different parts. That was it. 4 different main parts, not counting the accessory parts like the little arm cannons here. What were they thinking on that? What were they doing? Why did they do it? And why did they have to do such a poor job of it? It's just one of those things that sucks when they just decide the last member doesn't need to be special and that they can just randomly do the same guy again. It just annoys me that they didn't make a new mold for him. They just said, screw it, we'll just reuse him. And then it just fed into the thing of, yeah, Hasbro seems to love doing the first figure out of a set really, really good, and then just making the rest of it not as good. It's like they just said, you buy it here, and then you buy him, so now you're invested, right? So it's like you bought the first one, then you buy the second one, because you're like, oh, I got to complete the set, and you're like, oh, he's kind of all right. And by the time you see the third one, it's like, well, he looks like him, but I'm already too deep, and I only need 3, so I might as well get the third one. That's how that works. That's just how that works. And it's kind of annoying. But in the end, that is it for these guys. They're all right. As a set, they're like a 3. There's nothing spectacular about them. There's nothing, like, overly good about them. I mean, if you do want the Insecticons, I'd recommend them, I guess. But otherwise, there's not really a point if you're not interested in them. They're just there. They're good, I guess. Buying one without the rest you could get away with, especially Shrapnel, in my opinion. But that's really all for them. So this has been a review of the Legacy Insecticons. It's been Delete signing out.